Hello everyone, this is Jim. Welcome back to Sunrise Farm. In today's video we're going to be taking our Haas double wheel hoe with the plow set on it, set up in the furrow position, and we're going to create 2 furrows in these rows that I have marked out here, and we're going to run our drip tape, and we're going to turn the plow set around on the double wheel hoe and get them covered up. So let me go ahead and show you what I've done as far as getting these prepped up. So this is nothing more than an electric fence post that I bought from Tractor Supply. They're easy to push in, they're very inexpensive, and so I just have several of them to lay out my rows with. As you can see, I have yellow string line running from end to end. All I did was measure off my previous rows. Of course, I had the row start in already, so that told me where I was, and I measured off the previous row to the other end, and that way I get my line relatively straight. So this is a row start valve, and so it's a shut-off valve, and this end with the punch tool will go into your main line, and then this end will attach to your drip tape. So that just gives you the option of controlling what you're watering. And in my case, I have more than the amount of rows that can be handled by one run of mainline tubing or drip tape, meaning it's more gallons per minute if I turn them all on. So I can't run but about half my garden at once. And so it just gives me different options to control that. But for me, and clearly this is based on your own application and preferences, I've mentioned before in other videos, I'm a little OCD, so for me, I like to have relatively straight rows. So this allows me to line up the double wheel hoe on that string line and keep my row relatively straight. This row is about 40 to 45 feet, and I just want to make sure I'm keeping it relatively organized and straight, just so I have plenty of room to keep going with my planting. As you can see in here, yesterday I tilled all of this up. All of this over here will be getting tilled up in the next week or two. I am going to try, hopefully next season, to move more towards a lot of no-till applications. I don't exactly like tilling up the earth repeatedly if I can avoid it. It just disturbs the ground, the nutrients, the weed seeds, and everything else. And honestly, unless I had a tiller for my tractor, which I do not, it just is a lot of work and a lot of backbreaking work. So that's why we're going to be making some changes. Again, I think that's a lot of personal preference and understanding the nutrients in the soils that you have and how much it would take to amend it. You know, if you only have a couple of small raised beds, obviously you don't need a tiller and it doesn't take much to soil amend. But when you're doing a large area of land, it takes a little bit. All right, let me show you how I get started using this string line. Now this is only going to work for a double wheel hoe, and it's probably only going to work, well, not only, but the Haas double wheel hoe is probably one of the ones I know it'll work with because it's what I have. You probably have to make adjustments for others, but what it won't work for is a single wheel hoe, or at least it won't work as easy without making some form of augmentation. But I leave my string line up, so I take my string line. There's a brace on this double wheel hoe, and I put it through that brace, and that way I can use my setup like this to where I've got the plow set, which this plow set is now in the furrowing position, and when we get ready to go to put it in the mound position or hilling position, you'll take these off and you'll swap sides, and that'll create a furrowing position, a mounding position. And then we just get started. Now, if the ground is tilled and loose enough, you can typically just walk forward and it'll do it. However, if your ground's a little stiff, got rocky or whatever debris in it, you may have to do a little bit of a rocking motion where you pick up slightly to pull back and push down going forward. But the trick of it is to allow the equipment to do the work and to keep it kind of close to your waist. And once you've made it that far, you're done with the string line. Then I just come back. Oop. And that is how you do a line. So that made our furrow for the drip tape. And they're relatively straight. Now Haas does make a drip tape layer attachment for the double wheel hoe. I don't happen to have it. In this season, that wasn't something I could squeeze into the budget. Perhaps next year, who knows. But everything else is relatively the same. It just takes an extra step, maybe two, to open up a furrow this way, run the drip tape, hook it up, flush it out, turn it on, and then cover the drip tape, which is basically the order you want to do it in. So you can get a roll of drip tape like this. It can come in various sizes, drip emitter spacing, roll sizes, as well as tape thicknesses. So this is an 8mm tape with 12-inch emitter spacing, and it's by Rivulus, however you pronounce it. Again, there's several different kinds out there. This does happen to be the one that Haas sells, along with the fittings that I get. And so basically I have to make up my own way of rolling out the drip tape. So this is the step, that these steps are the ones that take the place of not having the tool. So it's an offset, right? A few $100s versus doing it this way. So what I have here is a piece of 1/2 inch, whoops, sorry about the noise. So what I have here is a piece of 1/2 inch steel pipe. And I'm just going to make a carrier right through this 4-foot ladder I have. I will tell you that, although I don't have one right this second on me, I have used 3/4 steel pipe because there's a hole right through this tape carrier, and in actuality a piece of 3/4 steel pipe fits perfectly. I had a piece of steel pipe, but I was using it for a stake, and well, ran over it with the tractor and bent it. At any rate, so we just want to put this, for me, I have the ladder sideways. and I just make a little carrier out of it. Now there's a couple of things I want to say about this particular method that I'm using. Could somebody sit there and hold it if you had 2 people and do the same thing, hold that piece of pipe, unspool it? Sure. But if you're going to do it by yourself, you need something that's going to hold still on you. My ladder won't go anywhere on me. This pipe allows it to move, but doesn't allow it to come off of the roller. But when you go to roll this stuff, there is nothing keeping tension on it. So when you do it, you really kind of need to do it in a steady, quick motion to run it so you don't have it all unspool on you in kind of a weird way. But also, there's no way to keep tension on it, so you can't just lay it down and then bury it. That's why you need to hook it up and inflate it first and get it to straighten itself out, and then while it's on is going to be the best method for covering it. Now, if you happen to have that attachment, it actually has a spring-loaded tensioner in it, and as you're laying it down, now you'll still have to do this step first, the furrowing step, but then you can turn the plow blades around with the double wheel hoe layer attachment, and with that tensioner on the spool, it will actually hold tension, keep the tape very tight, and allow it to lay the tape and cover all in one motion. So it is a great time saver if you're able to do that. It's also important to note that if you're going to do something like this, a couple of things need to occur. First, you need to have the tape coming from the bottom, not the top. Because if you unspool it from the top, it's really going to just get wild on you. The second is, now it comes this way as far as unwinding it off the roll, but there is a, let me just give you a quick, so there is a top side that's got the ribs and emitters. Here's an emitter by my left thumb, and here's an emitter by my right thumb. That's 12-inch spacing on the emitters. That is where the water will come out. The bottom side is flat with nothing on it. You want to make sure that the bottom side is laying down in the ditch, i.e. you want the emitters facing straight up as much as possible. So with all that being said, when you run it, like I said, just go in a steady, straight, kind of quick action, just so the spool doesn't want to do crazy things on you, and just go ahead and run it. And I will typically just leave about an extra 6 to 12 inches so that I have plenty of room to cut it off and maneuver it when I hook it up. And all you need for this step is just a pair of scissors. Now you don't want to put the end on first. You want to turn it on, flush it, then turn it back off, and put the end on it, and then you can go to covering it up. All right, so I already have my valve installed on my main line tubing, so I'm not going to show you punching the main line pipe, but there is several different style punch tools that you can get with your system, and it's very simple. They're just basically, they push in at a certain size to create a hole, and then these just snap in. All right, so what we have here, I'll just go ahead and show you since I didn't show you in the field, since I already had the stops on. But this is just a leftover roll of mainline tubing. It's just 5/8 plastic tubing. This is nothing more. I was a plumbing contractor for over 30 years. So this happens to be a PEX pipe cutter, PVC cutter, about the same difference. I'm just going to cut a small piece so we can work with it. And don't ever try to just push through a piece of pipe. Twist and cut if you're going to use these. So like this, don't try to push, because all you see is it kinks it. So if you're going to use a cutter like this, twist and cut in one motion. So anyway, a little tidbit there. Set that aside. All right, so you have your main line tubing, which is where your drip tape will run off of. And so you have two different types of ways to start the drip tape. So you have this shut-off valve, which is called a row start valve. And this will go into the hole you make in the main line, and then this is for the drip tape. And then this one is just a regular row start valve. You can see they're identical in application. This part will go into the mainline tubing, this part would go into the drip tape. But obviously this one you can't shut the water off. Now the real simple difference is the valves cost a couple dollars a piece, where these cost a couple cents a piece, or about a $2 difference kind of thing. And the only real reason to use these, and I'm not saying anything wrong with them, I have a whole bunch of them and I do use them occasionally, but if you're going to have one dedicated plot for one item, let's just say corn for example, and you know that whole plot is going to get watered the same way, the same time, you have it isolated, great, just use these. It's simple. Don't have to waste your time or your money with the row stops. But for me, I like to have that control because of different plots for different irrigation. And so when you buy it, this is the basic tool that it'll come with. It's just a very simple hole punch. But the problem is this little tip here, it wears out. First of all, the cutting part on it wears out. It's easy to get in the dirt and it rusts. But will it work? Sure it will. So all you're going to do is a twisting motion into your pipe. All right, so it's in there, right? And so you just take it back out, and you take your row start fitting, and you just, when you hear the click, it's in. Okay? And yes, you can pull them out and reuse them. And they do make plugs for that, or if you needed to change it to a valve, you could do that. The plugs they make for that are called goof plugs. So, all right, so this tool does work. This tool is just a couple of dollars. This tool is, I think I paid like $15 for it. This is a punch tool with a handle grip. So this right here, you can get it for different size pipes, this little notch thing. So this is made for this 5/8 tubing. You simply put it in and squeeze. All right, so you simply put it in and squeeze. Just that simple. You can see where it punched through. Right there. And so from there, same exact thing. If you had your row start valve, and you hear it click in. Now, with this pipe moving around and this fitting just being a little snap barb fitting, it's possible, especially if the line moves around, it's possible this will leak, but it won't leak in any significant way. I mean, you're already running drip tape. You already have water coming out the pipe in the first place. So as long as this thing doesn't pop out, if it leaks some, it's fine. All right, so hopefully that helped you out and showed you on the mainline tubing how you can simply pop in those fittings. It's pretty simple. And while I'm at it, let me show you one more thing. So this is a mainline shutoff valve. So it's a mainline shutoff valve, quarter turn ball valve. So how this works is you just work the pipe on to the barb. You can see there's only a single barb. So you work the pipe onto the barb, make sure your fitting's all the way to the valve, all the way open. And then you're just going to close it down on the pipe. And that's it. That would be all there is to it. And you can do and undo those very easily. So if you need to change it, move it around, disconnect it to separate it, to maybe get a lawnmower through there or something, whatever you got to do, they'll come back apart and go right back together again. But they also make hose bib fittings for these that'll do the exact same thing in an easier fashion. So these particular fittings that came, because I got this entire irrigation kit from Haas Tools, that came with it are made by Irrigation. And I want to point out a difference that I didn't know of in the first place and actually got me one time. It's not a big difference and it will work. But if you see on this valve, this is a mainline valve, and the fittings are black. The nuts are black. That lets you know, at least with Irrigation, that it's a mainline fitting. This, while this looks the same, and it will go on there. It will go on there, but it goes on, if you can see it, I'm doing it it goes on too easy, okay? But on this stop, the green fitting, and it's actually got 2 barbs on this fitting, but the green nut indicates drip tape, okay? So at least with these Irrigation fittings, black nuts indicate mainline. Green nuts indicate the drip tape. Hopefully that's helpful. But here's the drip tape. So drip tape, so the drip tape comes laying flat. As you can see, there's an emitter. And to put it on, all you do is open it up to put it on this barb fitting right here. Now, just for me, I don't necessarily need an emitter that close to the end of my drip tape. So I will literally cut the emitter off and I'll start just behind that emitter. That way, in essence, my row actually starts 1 foot from my valve. Now these can be a little irritating, stubborn to get on, because it's a flat piece of pipe that you're trying to open up and put over this fitting. Now it doesn't take a lot of pressure, because these things aren't even under a lot of pressure when they're operating. But if you can see, here's the top of my valve, so this is in line. I have actually the drip tape I put onto the side, and let me show you why that is. Because when you go to tighten this fitting, and you snug it just a bit, now look where that top of that line is. This tape will tend to twist because it's almost impossible to hold it in place with your fingers while doing this. So for me, if you start it 90 degrees off, or close thereof, when you twist it and tighten it, it'll actually twist to the top in place. So let me just spin around and we'll do the other one. This actually made me think of something else too to let you all know about. You see this gap right here? That means this fitting is already tight, meaning that it was already in the position where it had been, a tape had been on it. So you got to make sure that the fitting is all the way open, if you will, in order to put that drip tape on it. It's really not a complicated system at all. It just takes a minute to get used to it. But if you've got any kind of real rows running, or even long raised beds or anything like that, man, is this just a lifesaver. Now I will say one thing about the tape. You do want to make sure that your cut is straight. If you cut it like that, clearly that seems that's dramatic, but if you cut it something like that, it will not hold on that fitting. So it has to be a nice straight cut, or at least, you know what I mean, pretty straight. And just a simple pair of scissors is all you need. So a nice straight cut. Get this plastic out of my dirt. And this drip tape is reusable. So if you have it sized for your rows, and it doesn't get all bound up in the roots of the plants you have in the ground, or you know you hit it constantly, you actually can save this drip tape and reuse it. I've done it several times already. So here's a better way before I tighten that fitting. You can see I have the top of the drip tape to the side 90 degrees away from the top of the valve. And when I'm done, that drip line, the emitters, the channel for it is on top now, in line with the valve. So I lost my audio as I was trying to finish up this drip tape video for you. So I have to go back and do an audio voiceover. So here the next step would be this is the open end of the drip tape, to flush it out so that you can get it to lay out straight, and then turn the water off and put your drip tape end on it to cap it off. So you'll flush out your lines, however many lines you've got, just to make sure you've got them good flow through them and no debris got trapped in the main line or anything if you were using something used, and you get it all straightened out. So once you've got it flushed out, you want to cut it to where you know the end of your row is. And then we're ready to put the fitting on. So the plug has two ends, a wider end and a narrow end. You want to slide the narrow end over the drip tape. And then we're going to fold it 2 or 3 times and slide that fitting back across it to seal off the end. It does help if you've made sure all the water has gotten out of it from where you flushed it, so that it'll lay perfectly flat again for that fitting to slide over. And you just want to fold it over about the length of that fitting itself. There's a couple of ways you can do it, but you're just trying to get it to create a thicker end and basically a kink position. Just give it a little snug to make it tight. So now we're basically ready to go ahead and cover it up. All right, so with the water lines flushed out and capped off, we're now ready to go ahead and get our drip tape covered up. On our double wheel hoe with our plow set, we would have converted it from the furrowing position and swapped the plow set around and to put it into the hilling or mounding position. And that way we are ready to go ahead and turn our water lines on and let them get inflated so that they'll stay stiff and in position. And then we can go ahead and set up our double wheel hoe and get the lines covered up. Just takes a few seconds for the drip tape to inflate. You just want to go to the other end and kind of make sure you've got it straight where you want it. So that way when you go ahead and use the wheel hoe to cover it up, everything's all set. What you don't want to do is cover that line up with any types of kinks or offsets in it or anything like that. You want to pretty much make sure it's where you want it the first time and all straight and inflated. You'll see how easy this process is with our wheel hoe already in the mounding position. Doesn't take but just a minute to get this line covered up, and then we're all set to move into the planting phase. As you can see, when the double wheel hoe is covering that line up, if you're going to use a double row planting system, which I do for quite a few things, it creates two mini furrows about 1 foot apart just by the nature of the way the plow set goes through the ground and covers up the earth. It's a really handy feature to have when you're planting a double row type planting. Now I tend to always start at the beginning of my lines where the lines are hooked up to the main line. That way I don't take the chance, if I'm going backwards across the line, I don't take the chance of inadvertently kinking that line up as I'm covering it. This way the line stays kind of straightened out and stiff from the water pressure. Maybe an unnecessary step, but it's what I do. So here we'll just give you a close-up of it, show you how it just got covered up and it created those two mini furrows at the same time. Now you can set the plow set a little closer together if you want narrower spacing. All right, and that is all there is to setting up a drip tape irrigation system. The next step is planting to your heart's content, whatever type of fruits and vegetables you want to eat in your garden. Like I said, it's set up for a double row. If you don't want to use a double row, you can just take a garden rake, steel rake, and just kind of level that out real quick and plant directly on top of the drip tape if you're just doing a single row. I appreciate y'all taking the time so much to watch this video. And I just wanted to say again, thank you so much. Sorry about my audio dropping out and having to do a voiceover, but I appreciate it, and I hope this helps you. Please leave a comment. I'd like to know if this has been helpful to you, if you have some other tips that would be useful for others to know. If you like this video, please subscribe to our channel. We got more videos coming out on how to use the double row system of planting. It's just a great way to plant. If you've never tried it, I highly recommend it. Thank you so much. Take care. God bless you. Have an amazing day in the Lord. Happy gardening.